I genuinely believe that EuroBass 3 is one of the most realistic sounding bass virtual instruments that money can buy at this current moment in time. I don't want to waste any more time. I want to show you guys how this sounds. This is what it sounds like in a full mix. Now, as you can tell, I literally have slides, I have pops, I have slaps, I have everything going on in this bass part, and none of it is real. It is real, but it's not me actually playing it. It's all coming from the Submission Audio EuroBass 3 virtual instrument. Submission Audio got into contact with me and asked me to show you guys EuroBass 3, and of course I was more than happy to do so because, you know, back in 2018, 2019, more than anything, I was a fan and an avid user of these platforms, of these programs, well before I was an affiliate or a content creator creating content for them. Every single thing that you've heard from me, unless you've seen me hold a real physical bass, which has only happened once on this channel, has been Submission Audio bass libraries. And now with all of the new added features within EuroBass 3, I think it is one of, if not the most realistic sounding metal bass VST that money can buy. Again, I'm an affiliate with Submission Audio, so if you guys do decide to buy this, I do get a kickback from it. However, I'm not asking you to spend a single cent right now. All I'm asking you guys to do is watch this video, see exactly what it's capable of, see how realistic it can sound, and I can guarantee by the end of the video, you'd be very hard pressed to find a reason why not to get this thing. So here you have it, Submission Audio's EuroBass 3. So what is EuroBass? EuroBass is a virtual instrument that is fully resampled from a Spectre Euro 5 LX bass, so a very highly regarded bass, and it was used in both the original EuroBass and EuroBass 2. This is fully resampled with way more articulations, way more iterations of notes. Every single note on the fretboard is sampled, so you can have a one-to-one representation of whatever you're playing on your guitar and recording on your guitar. You can literally program this bass to play note for note, fret for fret, string for string, exactly what you're doing on the guitar. The reason why this is one of the most realistic sounding bass libraries that you can buy is because it's using Submission Audio's proprietary true bass technology. It's the exact same technology that's used in the Grove bass and Houshmand bass. I love Houshmand bass. I use it all the time. I'm actually using it on a new song that I have coming out in a couple of weeks, using all those different articulations through things like the 4-string articulations or the position knob. You can really kind of sculpt how exactly you want this bass to sound in terms of how exactly it's meant to be played. As you can see on the left hand side of the plugin screen, EuroBass 3 now has a bunch of different articulations that weren't previously there in EuroBass 2. Things like slapping, popping, ghost popping, tapping, true legato, and now specifically just for EuroBass 3, there's palm mutes as well, which is sick. So just to kind of give an example of how these articulations can be used, this little section here, if I was to solo out this bass, that little string of notes there, as you can see on the bottom here, so anywhere between like C0 and C2 is where you put your articulations, which is exactly, you know, where it says here. If I go into the settings panel, you can kind of see that here is where you set your articulations kind of on the bottom of the piano roll. So if I go back to my MIDI, these are the actual notes that are being played. This is the articulation. So I've got things like slapping, popping, dead notes, sliding, etc., etc. I don't know how to slap or pop on a real bass. I couldn't record it if I tried. So it's really handy to kind of have this here, not even just for demo tracks, but for actual real purpose tracks, because you can kind of get it to sound pretty much exactly like the real thing. And then on top of that, above all of these notes, I have exactly where I want it to be played on each string. But for the rest of the riff, you can see that whenever I'm down picking, you can literally see, if you were to hear the timbre of each string by just looking at which string I'm telling it to be played on, you can tell that this is the lower string, this is the string below that, and then this is the string below that one. You can see how it goes there. It sounds thicker. If I was to change this and make it just be played on the very lowest string, it would have a different sound to it. You can see that sounds a little bit different. If I was to push that the way that it was before, you can see that each string and each note depending on where it scrolls past, has a higher timbre, and it's much more realistic to how it would actually be played on a real bass, because I'm literally giving the program no choice of where to play it. One thing you can also do with these articulations that I programmed at the very beginning of the demo song, if you didn't listen to it, you can go back to it now. You can actually program very specific slides on the bass, so you can pick exactly what fret you want to start at and exactly what fret you want to end at, and you can adjust the speed of it accordingly. It's really awesome. Going to the very beginning of the bass track where it has this slide, you can see that I start on this note here and it eventually ends up at this note. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm hitting the 12th fret and sliding all the way back down to the 0, which if you open up the bass, you can literally see that for yourself. Where is it? There. It'll be there and it'll slide all the way back to the 0. So you can see I can kind of program exactly where I want it to start sliding back, which is kind of at this point here. If I was to push it all the way here, with this slide articulation over here, it just has a completely different sound. If I push it back to the way that it was before, it sounds much more natural. So again, it's just one of the many examples of showing how you can really manipulate this thing to sound exactly the way that you want it. As you can see on the right hand side, we have this bass tuning tab, although this doesn't really do anything for how we program it. This is just so that when we click here and go into the actual GUI of the bass, the notes that we play on the fretboard are relative to whatever we have the tuning set here. If I set this to drop A as if it was a 5-string bass and drop A, that would be A. If I push it back up to B, it will be B. Within EuroBass 3, there's also 3 different types of tones you can pick from. So firstly, you have the DI tone. Sounds exactly like a DI'd bass. You can then take this DI and run it through any sort of bass tone that you want, whether it's like a newer DSP parallax or a dark glass or physical gear. You can use that DI sound and basically push it through anything you want. There's also a clean sound and the distorted sound, which I'm using, and it's the exact tone that you heard in the demo as well. It's really cool how there's like pretty much ready to go tones in the box, because if you need to make a quick demo song for a YouTube video and you want to show off how good it sounds, it's very easy for it to sound good and sound extremely professional because it's literally right there in the box. Above the tones, you can see there's a little mixer panel. So when you click on that, you can adjust the tone even more. So I've added more girth. I've added more drive to the tone. This is a really driven tone. If I was to click on clean, you can see that, you know, the settings aren't saved. So everything is relative to each tone. You're not stuck at like heaps of girth if you want to switch between clean and distorted. And DI obviously has nothing. You can have pre-EQ turned on, or you can just have it completely flat. And on the bottom of the screen, it's very standard. You've got your articulation window. So depending on what you program it on based on these key switches here, within your piano roll, when you're programming the bass, it will tell you what the active key switch is. In the middle bottom of the panel, you have the alternate picking panel. So basically you can tell it how often you want it to kick into alternate picking based on the BPM of whatever track you're working on and stuff like that. There's this doom switch here that basically turns everything up to 10. This makes it sound not realistic at all, but it gives it a really cool characteristic if you were using it for like more EDM stuff or something that's just super aggressive. And not meant to sound real at all. Kind of like, I don't know, the way I would use it is like if you were trying to do like a Rings of Saturn song or something like that and you wanted it to be super dialed in and almost computer-like, you could do that as well. Then there's the humanize and position knob. So the humanize knob is where you can really set how you want it to react and how you want it to feel like it's being played. If you turn it all the way up to machine, it's going to have a similar effect to turning on the doom knob. Maybe not as kind of forceful, but having it all the way on machine makes it really sound like a VST instrument. If you turn it all the way up to bassist, you can actually kind of hear that, you know, there might be some slight articulations within the playing, jumping between notes that kind of sound a little bit off. And this is because every note on the actual bass is programmed not just once, but it's been recorded at least 5 times for every single note on every single fret on the fretboard on every string. So the program will basically decide, you know, based on where you put this humanize knob, which articulation and which one of those notes on that fret on that string to use. The position knob here is basically a virtual capo, so depending on where you put it, the program will only play notes above that certain fret unless it physically can't. But this doesn't really apply to me because I'm telling every single note where it should be played. So if I go up the top here, you can see that these are the strings. So that's my I guess that would be my A string, and then it drops to the B string, etc, etc. Let's solo out the bass so you can hear exactly what it's doing. So that was the DI tone. That's not the tone that you heard in the demo song. What you heard in the demo song was this. So you can tell that it's extremely exaggerated, very distorted, and especially when you're playing in a higher tuning. I think this song is recorded in drop D or standard E or something like that. So you have more room to kind of play with in terms of low end and how distorted you want your bass tone. It's not like something you might typically see from me where it's on a 7 string or an 8 string into drop F or drop E or something like that, where you're kind of looking for more consistency and more articulation in your playing and in your notes and how you program the bass and stuff like that. This is very much all encompassing, and I figured that it works really well for the song. In a full mix context, it would be very difficult to kind of figure out if this was real or not, to be honest, especially when it's kind of in the full mix, it's condensed with other instruments. If you program it well enough and you use it to its full advantage and use it to its full potential, and with all the key switches and forcing it to play on certain strings, it is, at the end of the day, literally a real bass being sampled by a real person. Let's go back to the actual bass tone in this song. I'm going to show you guys exactly how I mix this bass. So because I've used the built-in tone within the actual EuroBass plugin on the distorted channel, and as I said before, I've made my little changes here. I've added more drive and more girth because I want it to be thicker. The actual bulk of the work's already done within the plugin, which saves 1, time, and 2, a lot of CPU power, because I don't have to rely on another plugin or another kind of external hardware unit to kind of get the tone for me. It's all in the box, which is super handy. The only thing that I've really done to mix this is just added a little bit of EQ, you know, cutting off around 60 Hertz and anything above 7200, and just taking out some whistly frequencies that I kind of picked up by ear. Very stock standard stuff that you would usually do on pretty much anything that you're mixing on. From there, I use DoubleTap. I absolutely love DoubleTap. Could not recommend it enough. Again, it's another submission audio plugin because it just makes your life so much easier when you're mixing heavy distorted bass, or just any bass in general, really, because you have the low compression and the whole thing being compressed at the same time within the same plugin. So it adjusts both parameters separately. So for example, you can see here, it's adjusting the low end just by itself, and I can then compensate for, you know, how much is being added or how much is being lost. And then from there, you can apply compression to the whole signal after it's only just done the low end. So again, you're making it more consistent by compressing the low end, and then you're making it even more consistent by compressing that whole thing. Because if you were to compress the whole thing without compressing the low end first, the compressor would only be listening to the low end. So it would react to the low end first rather than, you know, the actual consistent waveform. And it just does a really good job of clamping down on the bass and, again, just keeping it consistent. Right now, there's also a bundle happening with DoubleTap. So if you buy EuroBass 3, you actually get an automatic 50% off when you add DoubleTap to your cart, which is really awesome. And again, I think that's an absolute no-brainer. If you're mixing bass at any sort of level, if you're using EuroBass 3, you're going to be mixing bass eventually. So again, I even use it on guitars. Like, I think it's one of the best plugins you can have in your arsenal to kind of get a really consistent professional sounding mix. From there, I'm using Soothe. I'm actually using a guitar preset on this. I'm using the guitar harsh preset. All this is really doing is like finding those super harsh frequencies whenever they pop up. It's a dynamic EQ, so it's not doing it all the time, but it's just kind of like a subtle reduction whenever those peaks arise in that playing. And then the last thing from there is virtual mix rack. Because I've taken out quite a bit of high end, I'm just, again, boosting all that high end back up, not in a harsh way, but just kind of making it more present in the mix. So I'm using virtual mix rack and I'm boosting up the high end. That is literally it. Those 4 plugins, along with the actual bass tone itself, is all you need to get a bass tone that sounds like this. Just going back there, I just picked it up now. If you look at this little articulation box, you can see all the articulations change as it goes through that bit. Quick to pull it back up. So how can you get EuroBass 3? If you go to Submission Audio's website, you can pick it up right now, launch day pricing for $119 US. If you already have EuroBass 2, it's only $69, and no matter when you buy it, it'll always be just $69 US if you already have EuroBass 2. So there you have it, that is Submission Audio's EuroBass 3. Again, all of the affiliate links for not only EuroBass 3, but all of Submission Audio's products are down in the description below. If you guys like this video at any time, please feel free to leave a like and a comment on anything you saw or heard. And if you want to see more of this stuff, definitely think about subscribing. If you guys want to support me directly, you can get the tabs, stems, DIs, all that stuff to the demo song that you heard at the beginning of the video, as well as things like merch, all the other affiliate links, everything like that. You can listen to my music on Spotify. All that stuff is down in the description below. Massive thank you to Submission Audio for letting me try EuroBass 3 early. Massive thank you to every single one of you watching, and massive thank you to all my Patreons. But until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. This was a long one. Ciao.